A divide has opened up between Europe and the United States, and Vice President J.D. Vance said this very openly here at the Munich Security Conference a year ago, and he was right. The battle of cultures of MAGA in the US is not ours.
Never in the history of the United States of America has there been a more destructive president than the current occupant in the White House in Washington, D.C.
Well, Donald Trump isn't too happy that some of his least favorite Democrats have been lauded for their appearances at a security conference in Munich, mostly because their message was well received and shared by other European leaders. That message being that Trump isn't exactly succeeding, despite Trump claiming for years that the world respects him and that America is strong again. And allies tremble before his negotiating prowess. At the recent Munich Security Council, the narrative looked more like, well, America under Trump is isolated, rebuked, and publicly humiliated.
100 Millionen Einwohner. Die Welt hat 8 Milliarden, also 7,7 Milliarden Einwohner wohnen nicht in Amerika. Also wir können, glaube ich, auf dieser Welt ein großes Potenzial nutzen, ausschöpfen, das wir bis jetzt nicht genug genutzt haben.
Now let's set the stage, though. The Munich Security Council is one of the premier global gatherings on defense and international security. It's attended by presidents, prime ministers, defense chiefs, and foreign policy heavyweights from across the world, right? And according to new reporting from The Guardian, Trump's presence, or lack thereof, was defined less by his leadership and more by public censure, those who are pushing back against the very narrative that he likes to put forward, especially from American voices like California Governor Gavin Newsom and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who openly challenged his framing of authoritarian threats and foreign policy priorities.
Made some pretty aggressive comments in Davos. I think I handed out knee pads on stage. For, corporate leaders, sold out universities, law firms in my country that are selling out. You just got to call this stuff out. Look, the polluted heart of the climate crisis is big oil, period, full stop. That's what this is all about. I mean, that's where the politics, that's where the timidity comes from. You talk about the tech stack. You can't get in one of these modern new vehicles and ever want to go back to the old gas guzzler. I mean, the technology, and we can talk in terms of just energy efficiency and how we bring down costs, and we've got to address those cost issues. But the biggest problem is the deceit and the denial that's happening because of these special interests. And so you just have to have the courage to call it out. And I agree with you. It's infuriating what I hear privately, but is not expressed publicly. And so we have to call people out. They'll be held to account. They will be judged and ultimately judge themselves. And I think this is a moral moment, across the board, simultaneous crisis, not just climate, but democracy, all this stacking of stress. And we all have a relationship to it. Society becomes how we behave. We are our behaviors. And so all of us have a role to play. All of us have agency. We can shape this conversation, but we have to stand up with more clarity, conviction, and we have to be more consistent.
People don't speak up because they're afraid of retaliation.
Yeah. Well, buck up. So am I. There's probably not a politician in the United States. I'm under assault attack by this guy every single day. Here's the President of the United States. He's 80 years old, and he's calling me a nickname that an 8-year-old called me, new scum. The President of the United States. You saw the racist tropes he put out. This is the President of the United States of America. Call this guy out. Stop this timidity.
Instead of NATO unity, there were stern reminders from allied leaders about commitments, rule of law, and shared values that used to be, pillars of democracy regarding the United States and their allies, but something that the president has made abundantly clear that he cares not about, whether he is trying to annex Greenland or pushing tariffs onto our allies. And this is something that AOC spoke to during her appearance, while Gavin Newsom stated plainly that Trump is destructive. And these sentiments, they were shared by those representing other countries, right? Diplomats and security experts who collectively expressed concern about the state of the United States under Donald Trump's administration.
Just a 20-second follow-up, really, just quick. Are there any particular institutions that a democratic administration would want to save? Like your voters? Is it NATO? Is it the climate accord? Is it the Iran nuclear? Are there some things where, just give me a lily pad?
Well, you know, first and foremost, I think we need to revisit our commitments to international aid, not just USAID, but the dozens of global compacts that this current Secretary of State and President Trump have withdrawn from. They are looking to withdraw the United States from the entire world so that we can turn into an age of authoritarians that can carve out the world where Donald Trump can command the Western Hemisphere and Latin America as his personal sandbox, where Putin can saber rattle around Europe and try to bully around our own allies there, and for essentially authoritarians to have their own geographic domains. And it actually is the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It is our global alliances that can be a hard stop against authoritarian consolidation of power, particularly in the installation of regional puppet governments. Yes, that's absolutely right. You know, I think one of the connections and relationships that is under discussed, particularly in the security space, is the fact that I believe we're seeing an economy, across economy around the world, including in the United States, that extreme levels of income inequality lead to social instability and drives, in a sense, in authoritarianism, right-wing populism, and very dangerous domestic internal politics. And that is a direct outcome of not just income inequality, but the failure of democracies over decades to deliver. The failure to deliver higher wages, the failure to rein in corporations. You know, the point was just made about antitrust. In the United States, antitrust is such a foundational bedrock value, not just because the ascent of monopolies create the abuse of power in corporations and market power, but there is a level of market concentration and corporate consolidation where a massive company can get so big that its consolidated power can rival that of nation states. And democracies, we have elected leaders, and in massive corporations that then begin to consume the public sector, gobble up these spending, they start to call the shots. And we're starting to see this with some of the billionaire class throwing their weight around in domestic politics and in global politics as well. So it is of utmost urgent priority that we get our economic houses in order and deliver material gains for the working class, or else we will fall to a more isolated world governed by authoritarians that also do not deliver to working people.
While Trump has tried to claim that he is building American prowess by imposing tariffs, FYI, tariffs just got knocked back in a bipartisan vote, deeming those imposed on Canada were illegal. And whether he's threatening allies, which again he was forced to reverse after major blowback, and overall just demanding unilateral benefits. And the most staunch opposition to Trump's foreign policy wasn't just coming from European diplomats. It came from within the US delegation itself in Munich.
It's a big story. You're missing a lot's going on. I like you. Let's talk about
but you can convince everybody, you can assure Americans and others that it'll go as usual.
That only people worried about us not having elections, you can fill it in a phone booth.
Okay.
We're going to have an election.
Glad to hear it.
And you know what? Republicans could win, but we got to up our game. Right now, it looks like we'll lose the House, maybe keep the Senate. Then in 28, we'll have another election.
AOC lambasted what she characterized as Trump's authoritarian leanings and misalignment with democratic norms. And that message was well received, flying in the face of the image that Trump likes to put forward regarding himself and how he is perceived by our allies.
There's no conversation about Ukraine that can happen without Ukraine. And And so they, of course, lead in terms of setting their terms on this. But I think that overall, as a principle, we shouldn't reward imperialism. And I don't think that we should allow Russia to continue, or any nation to continue violating a nation's sovereignty, and to continue to be rewarded, and whose main lesson and takeaway is that they will gain. And so what that looks like in the specifics, I think, is a deeper conversation. But on principle, I think that is what we should be pursuing.
I mean, the man can't even rally the support of his own base on home soil these days, let alone sparking any sort of enthusiasm with world leaders. Poll after poll shows that the president is underwater on everything from immigration, which he used to dominate in the polls, let's just be honest here, and regarding the economy, which again, he performed well in, all tumbling. And at the local level, the message also coincides with what the polls are saying. Americans are fed up and they are making themselves heard.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to add the MeidasTouch podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for new updates every single day.